1124 species in genus Impatiens. Impatiens, a world of delicate beauty. I've always been drawn to the vibrant colors and delicate blooms of the Impatiens genus. These flowers, with their intriguing name and fascinating seed dispersal mechanism, have captivated gardeners and botanists alike for centuries. As an avid plant enthusiast, I'm excited to share my knowledge and admiration for these captivating blooms. A diverse genus. The Impatiens genus, belonging to the Balsaminaceae family, boasts over 1,000 species. These plants are predominantly found in the northern hemisphere and the tropics, showcasing a remarkable diversity in their morphology and habitat preferences. From the busy streets of Hanoi to the lush rainforests of Southeast Asia, Impatiens species have adapted to thrive in a variety of environments. See full list at monsteraholic.com. Do deer eat Impatiens? Yes, unfortunately, deer absolutely love Impatiens. I've planted these lovely flowers a few times, and every single time, the deer have found their way into my yard and munched them down to the stems. The worst part is they seem to find them irresistible when the buds are just about to bloom. It's like a cruel joke for us gardeners. It's frustrating because they have such vibrant, colorful flowers that brighten up any space. But I think I'm finally going to have to switch to something less deerlicious. Are Impatiens poisonous to cats? Luckily, no, Impatiens aren't considered poisonous to cats. I have two curious kitties that love to explore the garden, and they've occasionally nibbled on my Impatiens without any problems. However, even though they aren't toxic, they can cause a bit of an upset stomach. My older cat, Luna, once ate a few leaves and ended up throwing up later that day. Thankfully, it was a one-time thing, and she's learned to mostly leave them alone now. Do Impatiens come back every year? Sadly, for me, Impatiens don't come back every year. I live in a region with pretty harsh winters, and those delicate Impatiens just can't survive the frost. It's a little heartbreaking because I adore their cheerful blooms, so I've learned to treat them as annuals in my garden. Every spring, I get so excited to pick out new varieties and colors to fill my flower beds and hanging baskets. It's become a bit of a tradition. Are Impatiens toxic to dogs? No. Thankfully, Impatiens aren't toxic to dogs. My neighbor has a big, goofy Labrador who often wanders into my yard, and he's taken a playful nibble on my Impatiens a few times. Thankfully, he's never had any bad reactions. Of course, I wouldn't encourage letting your dog munch on them. Plants can still cause tummy troubles, and it's best to keep our furry friends away from things they shouldn't be eating. Do Impatiens like sun or shade? Impatiens absolutely thrive in the shade. I've learned this through trial and error over the years. At first, I planted some in a spot that got lots of afternoon sun, and they wilted so quickly even though I was watering them faithfully. Since then, I make sure to plant Impatiens in shadier areas under trees or on the side of the house, and they do so much better. Their vibrant colors seem to pop even more in the shade, and they reward me with blooms all summer long. Do rabbits eat Impatiens? Oh, do rabbits ever eat Impatiens? I've had my fair share of heartbreak with these flowers thanks to those furry little pests. Every year I get excited to plant a few flats, hoping maybe this time the rabbits will leave them alone. But without fail, within a few nights, I discover that they've been munched down. It's almost comical how much they seem to love Impatiens, while leaving plenty of my other plants untouched. I'm still figuring out the best way to protect them. Do Impatiens spread? Impatiens do spread, in a couple of ways actually. The plants themselves get bushier and wider over the growing season. That's why a few Impatiens can really fill out a planter or garden bed. I also find they self-seed quite easily. Throughout the summer, the seed pods explode and send seeds scattering all over, leaving me with surprise seedlings popping up the following spring. This can be fun and definitely helps them spread, but it's worth keeping an eye on if you don't want them taking over your garden. How often to water Impatiens? I find that watering my Impatiens deeply about twice a week works well during most of the summer. They're thirsty plants, and I've learned that it's better to really soak the soil than to do frequent shallow watering. Of course, during extreme heat, or if they're in containers that dry out quickly, I'll water even more often. I always check the soil with my finger, and if the top inch is dry, it's time to give them a drink. Honestly, they're pretty forgiving if you miss a day now and then, but they'll really thrive with consistent moisture. Why are my Impatiens leaves turning yellow? There could be a couple reasons why your Impatiens leaves are turning yellow. Based on my experience, it's most likely one of two things: underwatering or lack of nitrogen. First, check how moist the soil is. If it feels dry to the touch, that might be the culprit. Impatiens like consistently moist soil, so if they've been neglected for a bit, the leaves might be yellowing in protest. Another possibility is they need a nitrogen boost. Yellowing leaves that start from the bottom and move up the plant are a classic sign. If underwatering doesn't seem to be the issue, I try giving them a dose of fertilizer with a good amount of nitrogen and see if that perks them up. Can impatiens grow indoors? Yes, impatiens can definitely grow indoors. They're a really cheerful and colorful option for bringing a touch of the outdoors in. I've kept them in pots on my windowsill before, and they did surprisingly well. The key is lots of bright, but indirect sunlight. Placing them right in a south-facing window can be too harsh. They also need to be watered regularly since indoor pots tend to dry out faster. With a little bit of care, you can enjoy those beautiful impatiens blooms all year round. How to grow impatiens from seed. I've had a lot of fun growing impatiens from seed. It's really satisfying to watch those tiny seeds transform into vibrant, blooming plants. Here's how I do it. Start them indoors. I start my seeds indoors about 8 to 10 weeks before the last frost date in my area. This gives them a head start and allows me to enjoy blooms longer. Use a seed starting mix. Fill a tray or shallow container with moist seed starting mix. It's light and fluffy, perfect for those little seeds. Sow the seeds. Sprinkle the seeds thinly over the soil and gently press them in. Impatiens need light to germinate, so don't cover them completely. Keep them warm and moist. I'll place my seed tray in a warm spot and mist the surface regularly to keep it moist. You can also cover it with plastic wrap to create a mini greenhouse effect. Transplant carefully. Once the seedlings have a few sets of true leaves, I carefully transplant them into larger pots or directly into the garden after the danger of frost has passed. It might take a few weeks for them to germinate, but it's worth the wait. How to plant impatiens in pots. Planting impatiens in pots is a great way to add a splash of color to patios, porches, or balconies. Here's how I go about it. Choose your pot. I like pots that are at least a few inches wider than the plants themselves. Make sure it has drainage holes so the roots don't stay soggy. Fill it with potting mix. Use a good quality potting mix specifically formulated for container plants. It'll drain well and hold moisture nicely. Plant your impatiens. Gently loosen the roots of the impatiens before planting. Place them at the same level they were growing in their nursery pots and fill around the plants with potting mix. You can space them pretty closely together for a full, lush look. Water and a little fertilizer. Water them thoroughly right after planting, and I like to add a bit of water-soluble fertilizer to give them a boost. Find the right spot. Place your pot in a location that gets a few hours of morning sun or dappled shade throughout the day. Avoid harsh afternoon sun that might scorch the leaves. That's it. With regular watering and a bit of deadheading to remove old blooms, your potted impatiens will reward you with gorgeous color all season long. How to revive dying impatiens. Reviving dying impatiens is definitely possible, but it depends on what's causing their decline. Here's what I check for and how I try to fix it. Watering issues. This is usually the culprit. Check the soil. If it's bone dry, give your impatiens a deep watering and see if they perk up within a day or two. If the soil's constantly soggy, overwatering is your problem. Repotting with fresh potting mix and adjusting your watering schedule can help. Light conditions. Are your impatiens getting too much harsh sun? They thrive in shade or dappled sunlight. Move them to a shadier spot and protect them from hot afternoon sun. Pests or diseases. Look for signs of pests like aphids or whiteflies, or diseases like downy mildew. Mild pest problems can be tackled with insecticidal soap, but diseases may require removing the plant to prevent spread. Nutrient deficiency. If your impatiens look pale or yellow despite proper watering and light, they may need a fertilizer boost. A liquid fertilizer specifically formulated for flowering plants will do the trick. If the problem is severe or you can't pinpoint the cause, it might be best to accept your losses and try again with fresh plants. But often, a little TLC and some adjustments can bring your impatiens back to their blooming glory. What do overwatered impatiens look like? Overwatered impatiens can be a bit deceptive at first, but here are the signs I look out for. Yellowing leaves. While yellowing can sometimes mean other things, with overwatering, The leaves often turn yellow and soft or mushy rather than dry and crispy. Wilting. Even though they're getting plenty of water, overwatered impatiens will often wilt. This is because their waterlogged roots can't function properly. Stunted growth. If your impatiens seem to have stopped growing or are putting out fewer blooms, it could be a sign of overwatering. Mold or root rot. In extreme cases, you might see mold growing on the soil surface, or if you gently remove the plant from the pot, the roots could be brown and mushy, a sign of root rot. It's crucial to address overwatering quickly, or your impatiens might not recover. Let the soil dry out before watering again, and consider repotting with fresh potting mix if the problem is severe. Are impatiens edible? While the flowers of common garden Impatiens walleriana, are edible, I wouldn't personally classify them as a tasty treat. They have a very mild, slightly sweet flavor, but it's nothing too exciting. I've added a few to salads for a pop of color more than anything else. It's important to note that other parts of the impatiens plant are not edible, so stick to the flowers only. How cold can impatiens tolerate? Unfortunately, impatiens are quite sensitive to the cold. They're tropical plants and really can't handle any frost. If temperatures drop below freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius, they'll likely turn to mush and die off. Even extended periods of temperatures below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, can stress impatiens and cause them to struggle. Because of this, they're best treated as annuals in most climates, especially those with cold winters. How to propagate impatiens. Propagating impatiens is super easy and a great way to get more of these lovely plants for free. Here's my favorite method. Taking cuttings. Choose healthy stems. Look for healthy, non-flowering stems with at least a few sets of leaves. Cut below a node. Using a sharp knife or scissors, cut the stem just below a node, the point where leaves grow. Aim for cuttings about 3 to 4 inches long. Remove lower leaves. Pinch off the bottom few sets of leaves, leaving some at the top. Also remove any flower buds or blooms. Root them in water or soil. You can root impatiens in either water or soil. Water. Place the cuttings in a glass or jar of water. Make sure a few nodes are submerged and change the water every few days. You should see roots in a couple of weeks. Soil. Dip the cut end in rooting hormone, optional, and plant the cuttings in pots filled with moist potting mix. Keep the soil moist and place them in a bright but indirect light spot. Transplanting. Once your cuttings have a good set of roots, you can transplant them into individual pots or directly into the garden. Plant them at the same depth as they were growing previously and give them a good watering. With a little patience, you'll have a whole new batch of impatiens to enjoy. What colors do impatiens come in? Impatiens come in a dazzling array of colors. Here's a breakdown of what you might find. Classic colors: red, pink, purple, violet, coral, white, and orange are very common. You'll find these in various shades from deep and vibrant to soft and pastel. Interesting blends. Many impatiens have beautiful bicolors, blends, and even patterns. These might feature contrasting centers, streaks, speckles, or a mix of colors on the petals. Less common, but out there. Yellow was only recently introduced to impatiens, and some hybridizers are working on unique colors like blue. Overall, you have a fantastic range of colors to choose from, so you can find the perfect impatiens to complement your garden or container designs. What temperature will kill impatiens? Impatiens are pretty fussy when it comes to cold. Any temperature at or below freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius, will kill them. This is because they're tropical plants and don't tolerate frost well. Even extended periods in the low 40s Fahrenheit, around 5 degrees Celsius, can stress them out. So, if you're planning on keeping impatiens alive, it's important to be mindful of the climate and bring them indoors or protect them somehow if temperatures are expected to dip that low. How to collect impatiens seeds. Here's how to collect those fun, exploding impatiens seeds. Wait for the pods. Seed pods form after the flowers fade. Look for plump, green pods at the base of where the flower once was. Time it right. The trick is to collect the pods just before they burst open naturally. You'll see the pods start to turn a bit yellowish and feel slightly soft. If they're hard and fully green, they're not ready yet. Be careful. Impatiens seed pods are notoriously sensitive. Gently pluck the pods from the plant, trying to keep them intact. I like to have a small container or bowl handy to immediately drop them into as I go. Dry them out. Spread the collected pods out on a paper towel or tray and let them dry in a cool, dry location indoors. It may take a few days. The fun part. Once the pods are fully dry, you can either gently squeeze them to pop them open or just give them a light toss and watch the seeds scatter. It's really satisfying. Store them. Place the collected seeds in a paper envelope or baggie. Label it with the variety and date, then store them in a cool, dark place until you're ready to plant. Tip: Impatiens readily self-seed, so you might find surprise seedlings popping up in your garden the following year without even needing to save the seeds yourself. What to plant with impatiens in a container? Impatiens make fantastic container plants, and there are tons of great companions to pair with them. Here are a few ideas based on your desired look and needs. For thrill, fill, and spill, the classic container formula. Thrill: something tall for the center like Dracaena spikes, ornamental grasses, or even a small coleus variety. Fill: impatiens themselves fill in wonderfully and provide the color. Choose varieties that suit your design. Spill: trailing plants like sweet potato vine, and chartreuse or dark varieties, ivy, vinca vine, or bacopa for a cascading effect. Focus on foliage. Coleus in contrasting colors and textures add drama. Ferns, like asparagus ferns, offer a softer, airy look. Caladiums with big, colorful leaves bring a tropical touch. Other flowering fun. Begonias provide similar care needs and come in diverse colors and forms. Fuchsia creates a whimsical, dangling effect. Lobelia adds a trailing element with delicate blue or purple blooms. Things to consider. Sunlight. Make sure all your picks have similar sun needs. Impatiens love shade. Water. Choose plants that like similar amounts of water to keep things simple. Color. Go for complementary colors, contrasting textures, or a monochromatic look. Have fun with it. Why are my impatiens dying? Unfortunately, there are several reasons why your impatiens might be dying. Here's a troubleshooting guide to help you figure out what's happening. Watering woes. This is the most common culprit. Underwatering. Check the soil. If it's bone dry, your impatiens are likely dying from thirst. Give them a thorough watering, and then water them regularly to keep the soil consistently moist. Overwatering. Impatiens hate soggy roots. If the soil is constantly wet, it could be causing them to rot. Check for mold, mushy roots, and yellow, waterlogged leaves. Let the soil dry out before watering again, and consider repotting with fresh potting mix. Light conditions. Too harsh. Impatiens thrive in shade and dappled light. If they're in hot, direct sun, they might be getting scorched, even with adequate watering. Move your plants to a shadier spot. Pests and diseases. Check closely for aphids, thrips, and whiteflies. These insects suck the sap out of the plants, causing wilting and stunted growth. Treat them with insecticidal soap or neem oil. Downy mildew. This fungal disease shows up as white, fuzzy growth on leaves and stems. Unfortunately, it's difficult to treat, so removing and destroying infected plants is often the best course of action. Nutritional deficiency. Yellow leaves despite proper watering, and light may mean your plants need a boost of fertilizer. Use a liquid fertilizer formulated for flowering plants. If you can't identify a specific cause, it might be best to accept the loss and start with fresh plants. Sometimes, it's difficult to recover a plant that's too far gone. Why are my impatiens not blooming? Here are the most common reasons why impatiens might not be blooming, along with solutions. Not enough light. While impatiens thrive in shade, they do need some sunlight to bloom well. If they're in deep shade, try moving them to a spot with dappled light or a few hours of morning sun. Too much sun. On the flip side, too much harsh direct sun can stress impatiens and also inhibit blooming. Make sure they're getting plenty of shade, especially in the afternoon. Over-fertilizing. Too much fertilizer, especially nitrogen, promotes lush green leaves at the expense of flowers. If you've been fertilizing heavily, cut back or switch to a fertilizer blend formulated for blooming plants. Underwatering. Impatiens need consistent moisture to thrive. If they're too dry, they might focus their energy on survival rather than producing blooms. Check the soil, and give them a good drink if it's dry. Immature plants. If your impatiens are very young, they may simply need more time to develop and start blooming. Give them a few weeks and see if they start flowering. Less common causes. Disease. Downy mildew can prevent blooming, but you would likely notice other symptoms like white fuzzy growth on the leaves. Pests. Heavy pest infestations can sometimes weaken the plant enough to prevent flowering. Regularly check for insect pests. Do impatiens attract bees? While impatiens have nectar that pollinators can use, they don't typically attract a lot of bees. Here's why. Flower shape. The shape of impatiens flowers doesn't always provide easy access for bees. Their nectar is often tucked away within the flower, making it a better fit for longer tongues like those of hummingbirds or butterflies. Other options. Bees are savvy foragers and often prioritize flowers with easily accessible nectar and pollen. When there are plenty of other bee-friendly flowers in bloom, your impatiens might not be as appealing to them. That being said, it's not impossible to see the occasional bee checking out your impatiens, especially if there aren't a lot of other nectar sources around. If attracting bees is a priority for you, consider planting other flowers in addition to your impatiens that are known bee magnets. Here are some great options. Lavender, bee balm, salvia, borage, cosmos, zinnias.